What is hot and where would you invest your money? 6 weeks ago, we went out to our database and polled them. What's the alternative asset class that they would invest in? Healthcare, childcare, student accommodation and data centres.
Well, good afternoon, investors. Now is the time to get your checkbooks out and get very excited about the upcoming investment you are going to make in healthcare. And the reason it's exciting is because of the following things, which we're going to demonstrate in the room. There we go. Now, if you are over 65, audience participation, please stand up. Don't be embarrassed. Yay! If you have parents who are over 65, please stand up. That's a bit better. There we go. And if you have had or plan to have, and that might not be you physically, but your partner, a child, in the next, say, couple of years, please stand up. And there you go. What about the rest of you? Have you been to a doctor or a hospital in the last 12 months? So that's just an indication of the fact that healthcare as an investment class is actually about all of you. It's about everybody in Australia. It affects all of us in some way, shape or form. So I'd love to make the case for your dollars today about investing in healthcare. This morning with some of the presentations we heard about population expansion, demographic changes, those sorts of things. All of that is a great story for the healthcare investment industry. However, not one of our speakers actually mentioned healthcare. I was with David Spears before and I said, you've just interviewed the former minister and talked about immigration and population growth, but you didn't mention healthcare. We always look at education, we look at housing, we look at all those sorts of issues, but we as investors and our investment committees are not educated on the healthcare space. The reality is, between now and 2036, the population is expected to grow by 26.4%. So at the moment, you are the 25 million Australians. There's going to be 32 million of you in this room at that time.
I'm Sean McMahon, Chief Investment Officer of the Charter Hall Group, and I'm delighted to be here to present to you what's hot right now and in the future, and that's childcare, part of Australia's social infrastructure. And you'll notice the building image there, the modern childcare complex. It's on about 800 square metres of land, 600 square metres of accommodation, and provides 100 places for kids. Little rascals a bit below that are My Little Angels, face painting at their local community centre. They now do that at rock festivals, but gave me a very practical insight into this space. I think something that's underestimated and potentially misunderstood is the critical role of childcare in the early learning and education of our children. As we all know, in those formative years between 0 and 5, that's when our kids learn most. And we think childcare is a fundamental part of the Australian education system and will underpin future prosperity of Australia. But being a parent is sometimes challenging, so could I ask all the parents to quickly stand up? Quick, haven't got much time. Well done, you look a bit tired, sit down. The reason you look a bit tired is probably you've seen this image before. It's certainly well sleep deprived, I think you were out a bit last night. But now I would like also everyone to stand up that has either been in childcare or has children in childcare or has family or friends that utilise childcare. So stand up. So it's pretty much the whole room. So childcare, you can sit down, touches a broad array of our society. And we have to be very thankful of the 160,000 odd childcare workers that work in this industry, because that's not always easy either. Now, what is social infrastructure? Well, social infrastructure in basic real estate terms is the physical assets and services deployed to ensure that our society and community function effectively as an economy. And we see childcare as critical infrastructure for the government and also, as I touched on earlier, critical in our education system.
There are currently around about 1.5 million domestic and international students currently studying higher education in Australia. There are 100,000 student accommodation beds. 1.5 million students, 100,000 beds. But what is student accommodation? Student accommodation is generally defined as a cluster of around about 50 beds together, catering for students, obviously. That can be combined with some sorts of services attached to it. But for universities, it is so much more than that. For us, we aim to create living and learning communities. So we want to create environments that take 17, 18, 19-year-old students coming out as teenagers, their first time leaving home, their safety network of family and friends, and putting them in an environment that is attached to universities themselves. We want to create life skill programs that enable them to learn about the fundamentals of cooking and the fundamentals of now socialising with each other and the fundamentals of even, yes, cleaning up after themselves. So we want to provide the best pastoral and wellbeing services as well. Because in an age of mental health cases rising, we want to make sure that we put them in an environment that is connected, where we have dedicated staff on the ground. So there's different types of categories of student accommodation, and it can start from traditional residential colleges right through to an emerging sector of university accommodation, which is generally more of a halls of residency style model, and then down to another emerging asset class, which is the private sector student accommodation market, and then down to the private rental market as well. But student accommodation for us is such a critical part of what we need to provide for our students.
I'm going to talk to you about something that affects all of us all the time, not just some things that affect some people some of the time. So I wanted to start off with I know you've had a lot of audience participation here, so don't need to stand up and stuff, but just very interested in what you do first thing in the morning, right? Coffee or the internet first? You know, coffee can go up, hands up, coffee or internet? Coffee? Okay, so we've got a lot of coffee addicts here, but I predict within the first 15 minutes you're hitting a mobile device or some form of internet connectivity. There's no way you're getting through that. I sort of coined a personal theorem a while ago, and I've had it played back to me through some consultants, so it's got to be kind of right. And it goes something like this. A human being in a modern setting will get through a longer period without water than without connectivity, right? Have a guess here. Like, can you get through 2 hours without water? Probably will. 3? Can any of you get through 2 or 3 hours without checking your mobile phones or your internet? Have a guess? Very, very unlikely. So, so I'm going to talk to you about data centers, and we'll just step through what these, try to demystify what this cloud infrastructure means and what a cloud is. And I'm here to talk to you about putting your money into an investment. I think we had some great speakers talk about very important themes. But this is not about support or judgment. It's about, if you had $100 million that you need to invest for the next 10 years, where would you put that money? That's what we're talking about here. So let's spoke a little bit about how you start the day. But the important thing is when you think about what you do during the day. So, you start your day with, any number of applications. You probably use a little bit of Spotify to get yourself to work. But what do you do at work? When you get to work is all about software as a service these days. It doesn't matter what type of work you do. You're on a spreadsheet or you're on on an email system or an accounting system, but it's all software that has to go somewhere. So there's a lot of data that you are constantly creating every minute of the day.